Welcome to ChoreoCollab Podcast, where we discuss dance, film, collaboration, and more. Brought to you by Central Florida Choreographers Collaboration. I'm your host, Amanda Van Meter Birch. Today I'll be talking with Hannah Townend about her collaboration with us for Season 3, Project 31, Arena. Hi, Hannah. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm excited to have you on today so we can talk a little bit about your project.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
So tell us a little bit about your dance background and how you got started in the dance world.
Well, when I was younger, I've always wanted to dance, but as most people know, dance lessons are pretty expensive. So I would go over to my cousin's house after her dance lessons, and she would just teach me what she learned in class. And I mean, she taught me as well as a 7-year-old can teach her older cousin. So I learned plie and stretch from her.
Oh,
And then at around 12 is when I was finally able to get in some classes myself. And that's when I started in African dance and modern. And then later I went to a different studio because I was convinced that I wanted to be Misty Copeland. So I wanted to go train in ballet. And so then I went and did ballet and more modern. And I ended up in the modern world.
okay. Are you from the Tampa area?
No, I'm from like northeast of Atlanta,
Oh, okay.
Lawrenceville. Yeah.
So what brought you here?
College.
Okay.
Came to Tampa for the USF dance program, and I met my husband at school, and we
Mhm.
got married, and then we stayed here.
Yes, it's a true USF love story.
It is.
Um, so at what point did it click for you that this is what you wanted to do?
I think I've always known that this is what I wanted to do. I can't think of a time when I truly wanted to be something else. I think for a couple months in elementary school I wanted to be a teacher, but I've always wanted to dance, and now I'm a dance teacher.
Mhm.
So I think I've always known that dancing is going to be a big part of what I do.
Mhm. Well, tell us a little bit about your project.
My project is it's kind of like most of my works, it's something that I'm trying to tell myself and also others. So this project was a lot about realizing how ineffective our efforts are to either reach salvation through Jesus Christ or to um, work it off, I guess is the way to say it, or to even achieve like this kind of sense of accomplishment that is lasting, right? We can always, anyone can work to something and feel accomplishment for maybe like 10 minutes, a month, or however long. And then there's always something else we want to do, and we don't feel like we're complete until that happens. And so my piece kind of explores what it means to push through and work your way to this expectation that you put on yourself or that others put on you, and how futile that is. And so at the end the dancers kind of walk through this doorway of white light into realizing that true peace is resting in Jesus Christ once he has granted salvation.
So why was this theme important to you?
Because I'm a workaholic. I I'm I really like, okay, maybe not a workaholic, but I just like working hard. I like working towards something and then achieving it and then working towards something else. Every time I do something that I want to do, I'm like, okay, now what can I do next? And I feel like for lots of Christians, myself included, it can feel easy to think, well, I guess I also need to work off my salvation, even though the Bible tells us that salvation is a gift from God. Or I need to work to get God's approval, even though God tells us through his word that um, when we have salvation in Jesus Christ, we are then declared righteous. So in my heart, I wanted to do these things that were contrary to what the Bible was telling me that I needed to do. So I grabbed two dancers and made this dance so that I could understand it myself.
Hmm. So there was a bit of a practical research aspect to your project then that you were
Mhm.
sort of fleshing out personally.
Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. So how did you proceed with choreographing it?
As a lot of my students know, I like to do fresh, never frozen choreography, which just means I come in the studio with maybe an image or an idea, and I just go from there. And so sometimes I'll say, if I get stuck, what I like to do is I ask a dancer, "What did you have for breakfast this morning?" And they think it's this really funny question, and I'm gonna choreograph based off of their answer. But I sometimes I choreograph based off of their body language as they're
Mm,
speaking to me what they had for breakfast, and that usually turns into something that turns into something that is more cool, I guess, for lack of a better phrase, than what I would have come up with if I had sat down and like tried to think about and write out different choreography steps, because my students and my dancers are big inspirations for my choreography.
mhm. As they should be. That's
Yeah.
awesome. So what was the relationship like working with your dancers?
My dancers were and still are students of mine. I teach them at a studio called All That Dance. And so I've worked with those two who are in my piece for at least 2 years, for
Mm,
better or for worse. So they knew coming into it that it was going to be an intense piece because I make intense work. Um, and they knew going into it that it would be, I set something and then we go away from it and then we come back and it's going to change a little bit, but it's going to get a little better because it changes.
mhm.
And so having dancers who knew my process and knew what I expected of my performers really helped bring it out sooner, I think, than if I had all new dancers who had to get used to my personality and used to my choreography process. So I had a lot of fun in rehearsals, just kind of playing with what they give. A lot of times they would make a mistake and I would be like, oh, that was actually better than what I came up with. So do that instead. Or sometimes they would be like, well, what if we did this? And then I would be like, oh, yes, let's do that. And then take it to the nth degree. So we could kind of play off each other that way.
How do you think they interpreted the choreography that you gave them?
Ooh, that's a good question. I should ask them. I explained the concept to them in the first rehearsal about what it was about. I There was a sermon by a pastor named Alistair Begg that really hit home to me. That I actually played part of that sermon for them. But
Mhm,
I'm not sure either of them are believers, so I'm not sure if they understood kind of the depth of what it meant to be saved by grace and
mhm.
then to live by faith as well, not live by works.
Gotcha, gotcha. Well, I think that it did turn out beautiful, like, it was nice. It was great to see. I think they at least got the struggle aspect,
Yeah.
you know, down, and, yeah, I think that people will appreciate what they did with it,
Mhm.
definitely. So what was the film technical aspect like for you?
That I think is the hardest part of doing dance films for me. I'm so focused on what are the dancers doing, what do I think it will look like, and so then going from what I give them to what I think it will look like, that bridge is the hardest to me because I'm not super um, knowledgeable on cameras or angles or things like that. So actually, the videos that you sent us about kind of what to be thinking about in terms of where the camera is and what kind of mood that creates helped a lot. Um,
I'm glad.
yeah.
Yeah, I definitely feel like, the choreographers that come on with us, they sort of get a crash course in filmmaking. Of course, this isn't something that I started out doing either. We've only been doing this for about 3 years, and it's a vast world of knowledge that we're
Oh yeah.
still trying to get under our belt. Those little tidbits I'm trying to kind of like move along so that people sort of get an idea and they're not just thinking about dance, because a lot of these choreographers, like you said, they're used to choreographing for the stage, which is quite different than choreographing for film. um and we love the stage, but with film there are so many possibilities of, angles, and what does that mean, and is it moving, is it standing still, why, and you have so much more control over what your audience sees.
Yeah.
So, there's that. Um, so what challenges arose from the process?
The biggest challenge was scheduling. My my dancers are high schools. The one is a senior, the other is a junior. So one is busy with college things, getting her first job, things like that. The other is in her junior year of high school, which I think is the hardest year of high school or college, the
Mm,
one right before your senior year. So scheduling them during times where they weren't going to be dead tired. I love rehearsing in the morning at 8 a.m. I found out they do not. And I love coming in like on a Saturday at 9 a.m. for 3 hours. And I'm like, that's when my brain works the best. But it's when their bodies are like,
yeah.
we
So
can't
you're
do
a
it.
morning person?
I most definitely am.
Wow.
I'm the first one up in my household at 5:30. And then the boys come next at 6:30. And then finally Brent at 7.
I envy that. I always feel like I could get a lot more done instead of the wee hours of the night, but I end up being a night owl. Ugh,
Yeah. I mean,
but
either you kind of get the benefits of either one. If you wake up in the morning, you have that time. But if
mhm.
you're I go to bed at like 9:30, I can't keep my eyes open that much long. Like 9:30 or 10 p.m. I'm shutting down, not even because I want to, because my body just is. But my husband's up till 1 a.m. getting stuff done.
Yep.
That's when he's most productive. So yeah, I think scheduling, and
Interesting.
I have two boys, so
Mhm.
finding a time when they weren't going to be running around in the studio, or finding a time when my husband wasn't working so that he could have the kids. But the girls really enjoyed having the boys in the studio. And sometimes it meant finding different floor patterns because they would be running the piece. A kid would run by and they'd have to do something else. And I would be like, oh, that actually worked. So let's go with that.
That's funny.
But I think juggling mom life and kind of where I want my career to go was the biggest struggle of this project.
I love babies in the studio.
Mhm.
Um, so what are some of your favorite elements for collaboration for the project?
Um, Definitely music. The guy who created the music, Damian Simon, I love that score so much.
Mhm.
It's amazing. Um, and I think the dancer choreographer collaboration is always going to be close to my heart because when I first in high school, when someone was choreographing a solo for me for competition, I had my teacher come in the room and she was like, "You can't just stand there and have someone put choreography on you. It's a back and forth process."
Mm.
And any time that I've been in that process, I've tried to either give if I'm in the dancer position or receive from the dancer's input if I'm in the choreographer position. And it's always just been phenomenal what comes out of a two-way street communication rather than like I have an idea and I'm going to impose it on you.
So valid.
Yeah. And I think that works for marriage too, now that I'm thinking about it.
Good
Communication is better
point.
than being like, I'm imposing what I want on you.
Life lessons, yes.
Yeah.
So was the process what you expected?
The choreography process, yes. The videography, like when we actually got to the space, I think it was easier than I expected. At least it took less time than I expected. The heat of that day was a lot.
Ooh,
That was rough on everyone.
yes, it was.
Um and so like dealing with that and like still wanting the intensity that I needed from the dancers without wanting to like completely exhaust them, send them home to their mothers like dripping in sweat and about to pass out from heat exhaustion. Um that was definitely hard. And then kind of making impulse decisions on film day is harder than making impulse decisions in the studio simply
Mhm,
because I'm not just dealing with my time and my dancers, it's the time of everyone else as well. And
mhm.
also just the health. It was so hot that day. I can't be like, well, this tiny thing was off because I really cared about everyone who was a part of that, who was filming it, who was dancing it, and who was helping. So I think the hard part was finding like that happy medium between this is what I want as a choreographer, and this is what I want as just a caring mom person.
Yeah. And I don't know what it was about that space when you talk about the heat. I mean, obviously we're in Florida. Everybody knows about the heat. We're famous for our humid heat.
Yeah.
But on top of that, you were in this concrete box that essentially became like a little oven.
Mhm.
It's the first time I've actually had my camera shut off because it got too hot. The one and only time. So I had to give it a break and start, listening to the electronics a little better. But yeah, it was brutally hot in that building. But it was a really incredible space,
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
know. And
Fans in
I was
there.
gonna ask, how did you find that venue?
I was actually on my way to a birthday party for my friend at the restaurant across the street, and I
Mhm.
parked on the street opposite that building. And I was walking by, and I was like, "Huh, this is where my film is gonna be." So I just peeked inside for 2 seconds because I was late to the party, as always, and I was like, "Well, this is where I want my film to be." And then it almost didn't happen, as you know. I reached out to the guy, and it took him forever to get back, but then
Mhm.
last minute, he was like, "Hey, you can use it for free."
He did. He came in and saved the day.
Yeah. It took a lot of searching to find who owned that, because it's lots of
Yeah.
businesses have their address listed as that space
Mhm.
because I guess other businesses use it, even though it's a parking garage. I don't understand that,
Well,
but
the business, yeah, I think the businesses were assigned to a parking space.
I
So
see.
they rent, I think they rent a parking space from the guy because they, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
On one business's website, it was like, "This is our official, uh, what's it called? Address of business," was that space. And it
Mhm.
might have been an old website, but I was like, "You can't work out of a parking lot." But I had to like create a free account on this business real estate website so that I could put in an address and find out who owns it. And they had like 6 email addresses and 6 phone numbers. And I called every single one of them at least twice. I think I got in contact with his grandson and was like, "Hey, I think your granddad owns this building. Can I contact him?" It was just a really roundabout way of getting his attention.
See, the things that y'all don't see, the things that you guys don't see that happen behind the scenes in order to
Yeah.
track down to get proper permission to use things, music licensing, location permits, insurance, all of that goes into it.
Yeah.
But it's worth it. I think it worked out great.
Oh, yes. I'm excited for it.
So, how did you get involved with CFCC in the first place?
I think back 3 years. Did I don't even did you put an ad out and I responded? Or
Yeah, you were a part of our first season.
yeah.
I think I just put it out there on Facebook and Instagram and wherever, and I was like, I don't know if people are going to bite, but I think you were the one of the ones that saw it and reached out.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Because I remember I think I was pregnant with Zeph 3 years ago. Yes, because as soon as I got married, I got pregnant, which means I was pregnant with Zeph, and so I was like, "Is my dance career over? Am I done choreographing?" And then, "Nope, it's not. I have this opportunity." And Brent was like, "Do it, do it, do it, do it." And he's been like that ever since. Every year, I'm like, "I don't know if I should do it again." And he's like, "Just do it. Just do it. Go for it. This is what you want to do. It's one of your only outlets right now of performing or
Mm,
choreographing in a way that feels real to you with people who kind of share your interests. So go for it."
hmm. And 3 years later, here we are.
Choreographer the first year, dancer the second year, and choreographer the third year.
Yes, love it.
One of
So
these
what?
days, if it continues, I'm going to choreograph on my sons because I think they'll
Yes. Oh my
be
gosh.
good.
Yes. Aw, I can see it. I can
Yeah.
so see it. So what's next for you?
um, Brent and I are both working in Brandon at Brandon Ballet. Brent just got promoted to the assistant artistic director of that company.
Congratulations.
Yeah, and I'm like the admin coordinator. And right now, what's next for us is kind of just moving forward with that company. So as I have a piece premiering in, it was supposed to premiere this Friday, but it won't be anymore. it'll be premiered in February at an event called Beers for Bars, and it's a beer fest where brewers come, they donate beer, they serve. It's free beer, but it's free with the admission ticket. And so then we have like a beer tasting contest. The Sign and Vine caters the food. Um, and then we have our dancers. It's like the first event of the season for our company. And so this is the first time that Brent and I will both have works premiering in the same night at the same event. So
All
it's kind of
right.
like along with excerpts from Swan Lake, but it's kind of like a Townend premiere night. For Brent made a contemporary ballet piece. And nope, sorry, that's wrong. I made a contemporary ballet piece. Brent made a classical ballet piece. um, and his piece is an excerpt from a brand new ballet that we're hoping to premiere in Brandon Ballet's 30th season. Damien wrote an entire score for an hour and a half ballet. It's a piece of
Nice.
sound. And Brent wrote a brand new storyline. So we're like premiering tiny excerpts from it leading up to the big premiere next year.
So how can people find information on that?
BrandonBallet.org/events is where we list all of the events, and the updated date for Beers for Bars will be published in the next week or so as we kind of regroup after the letdown happened. And most of all, our Facebook and Instagram pages, and that's just Brandon Ballet.
Okay. And how can people find you?
Oh, that one's hard. Facebook, Hannah Ballard Townend. Although it won't be lots of dance things, it'll be lots of photos of my sons, which I think they're worth searching. So,
I get
um,
it.
yeah.
As a mother, I get it.
um, Mostly by Facebook in a public way. Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's been great chatting with you, Hannah, and it's a
Yeah.
pleasure as always to have you with us. I'm excited to premiere the work when it comes out, and we'll see you later.
Yeah. We'll see you next Saturday.
I know, it's so close.
I know.
That was Hannah Townend, Season 3 choreographer with Central Florida Choreographers Collaboration. You can see Hannah's project along with dozens of other films in ChoreoCollab Film Fest 2022. ChoreoCollab Film Fest 2022 is screening online until November 20th exclusively at ChoreoCollab.com. We hope you'll join us next time. Keep creating, friends.